Binbrook Christian Fellowship began as the result of a dream. And in the dream, I was walking down Highway 377. Now, granted, I hadn't been on Highway 377 for the number of years that I lived in Fort Worth, hardly at all. But started walking down 377, I noticed there was fresh oil on the highway. So that got me excited in the dream because I knew oil represented the Holy Spirit and was a sign of God's life and God's presence. And I looked over at a building there on the highway and looked up at the sign, and it had the logo of the church that I was serving in South Fort Worth at that time with Binbrook Christian Fellowship written around it. And I walked into the building and started teaching. There were people there that I knew, and we had a great service, great worship service. It's not hard to interpret that dream. I woke up and knew the Lord was prompting me to start a church in Binbrook. Sure enough, just a few months later, we had our first service, and we had 38 people at the first service. And the rest is history. The Lord blessed us. We had growth every year, sometimes just a little bit, but we kept growing. We didn't ever plateau. We didn't ever go backwards. And the Lord blessed us to grow, to have an impact. We expanded in the shopping center that we were in. We expanded 8 times. So we ended up with 8 of the 11 suites in the complex that we were in. We just kept, every time a tenant would move out, we'd take their spot, assume their lease, and we would grow that much more.
We had to haul in a sound system, and so down the middle of the aisle, everything was taped down, and it was so many chairs that were there, like the worship team stood on the side over here, and there was a pile of dirt where that commode had been pulled out. So there was just this pile of dirt sitting in the front right corner of where we were having church.
With a piece of plywood on top of the hole in the floor where the commode went to, with bricks sitting on top of it.
Yes.
Binbrook Christian Fellowship was blessed. Anything that comes by way of revelation and is affirmed by counsel, by wise men, that's a blessed thing. However, we weren't making the impact in the community that God wanted us to make. We were blessed by what happened with the charismatic movement, and some of the good things with it were worship, the love for worship. One of the bad things with it, in my opinion, was the priesthood of the believer. Great systematic belief system, a great faith belief system, but what it produced in a lot of people was, I hear God just as good as you do, and my relationship with God is just as important as anybody else's, and I need to work on this first. I need to be sure that all of this is really, really good. And everybody became inverted.
Right.
We became very inverted. There wasn't a passion for souls. We weren't having any impact in the community. You could have asked people within a mile of our facility if they knew who Binbrook Christian Fellowship was, and they would have said, who, what, where? There's a church in that shopping center? Mm-hmm. And the reason why is because we were inverted. We didn't have an outward focus at all. And so the Lord wanted that to change, wanted the self-focus to change. All my fault. I'm the leader, I'm responsible. But we had no process to help believers grow spiritually. We just, come on, we want to help you get saved, but even that wasn't very important. It was, we want to help you experience the Holy Spirit, which is good. We love experiencing the Holy Spirit. However, that in of itself only ends up becoming quite often very self-focused and very self-centered. Binbrook Christian Fellowship began in 1995. The transition of Binbrook Christian Fellowship began in the year 2000. And in 1999, we received a prophecy during a presbytery that the Lord wanted us to be a church set on a hill. And then Pastor Robert Morris from Gateway was one of our presbyters, not aware of the previous prophecies. He prophesied, and he was standing facing the north, and he took his hands and he said, back here, the Lord wants the church to be set high on a hill. Little did he know, only God knew, that I was already looking for property. I'd been driving and praying, knowing that God wanted us to move up to the next level and have a greater impact. And after that service, I drove down Highway 377 south, and I went down and was just looking for a hill. And I've never been up 2871. So I drove up 2871 and realized this is a pretty good hill. And that's where High Ridge Church is now. So it was actually the 12th property I investigated, trying to find a permanent home for Binbrook Christian Fellowship to become High Ridge Church. And it worked out. We were able to buy the property. We paid for it cash. And it was quite a miracle. We had, probably when we went from BCF to High Ridge, we had, as I said, 83 giving units. I think that made about 375 to 400 people is what we ended up having, everybody included. That core had a passion for more. They had the same stirring and the same heart that I had, and they were rejoicing when I finally got a handle on it and could enunciate the new vision. They were ready for more. It wasn't easy. Changes are never easy, especially for people that don't like change. But in the long run, God blessed us. If I were to have to define what the wins were for Binbrook Christian Fellowship, quite often the win was we experienced the Lord. And that's a good win. That's a great win. But I knew God wanted it to be bigger than just an experience. I knew He wanted the win to be people.
Yeah.
He wanted it to be souls, change lives, spiritual growth, progress, people raising up in faith and growing and going out from us to be pastors, to be executive pastors, to be worship pastors, and for us to truly be able to equip and fund and supply strong, growing, vital Christian servants of God for other churches. So our focus has changed a lot. It's changed a lot. We still love the Holy Spirit. We still love worship. We loved God really good at Bimber Christian Fellowship. I mean, we loved Him really good, but we didn't love people that much. And now I think we've got a good balance of loving God and loving people.